Hello, everyone. Welcome to Afflatus, episode 1. I am so glad that you are here. First of all, I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit and say a little bit about me. So, my name is Reed. I am a student at Iowa State University. Some of my interests, I love to read. Yeah, I know. I've probably heard everyone in the book, every joke that's in your head right now. I've heard them all. I like to rock climb as well. I find that pretty relaxing, but COVID has kind of derailed that a little bit. So, I haven't done it in quite a while. I love taking long walks on the beach, although, Iowa kind of isn't really the best place for that. I also am a really big skier, but ironically, Iowa doesn't have skiing either. So, kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place there. But so now I'm going to talk a little bit about why, the why I'm doing this. So this is going to be a 1-year challenge. So planning on doing a podcast every week. So that would be 52 in total for those of you who need a reminder. And my goal is to spend about 1 hour researching / scripting, depending on what I do. Aiming for maybe about 20-minute episodes at first, and then, graduate maybe to 60 minutes, try to make some better looking content and also maybe a little more interesting content. And all of this will be unedited audio containing all of my mistakes. So currently this is my first take and this is what I'm going to be uploading. So what am I going to talk about for those of you listening? If there are anybody listening, it's just going to be things that interest me. So for me, as I kind of mentioned, that would be books. I'm very interested in philosophy, things like religion, and obviously more. I will try at least to steer away from some divisive issues such as politics. Wink, wink. We'll kind of see on that one. I haven't really decided yet. So now we get to the big question: why? So why am I doing this 1-year podcast challenge? Well, that's a great question. Why not? Anyways, enough of stupid jokes. So for me, I stumbled across a podcast a while back about philosophy. It was just a guy in a room just talking about philosophy. I mean, this is an Oxford educated man. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. But it got me thinking, like, he's sitting alone in a room talking for 60, 70 minutes straight about something that interests him. And I mean, you rarely see mistakes. You rarely see him stumbling over his words. So that got me thinking, what does the podcaster get out of a podcast? So obviously, as a listener, podcasts can be anything and anything you're interested in. Could be something like underwater basket weaving, if you're into that. Could be cars, if you're into those, if you know what I mean. But that's what the listener gets out of it. The listener gets the engagement, the interest from the topic. But what about the podcaster? What does the podcaster get out of what they do? Well, I think it's definitely numerous. It would be things such as public speaking skills. I mean, essentially, it's just a speech class with no audience, or no audience, directly listening to you. Depending on what you do, you might need to learn to support or formulate your opinions on the fly. You could, I'm sure a lot of these people, whether they're talking about cars or whether they're talking about philosophy, a lot of times they probably just have an outline, and they probably just talk and read their outline to remind them where to go, but they just talk. And so for me, I think another thing that I find interesting when I listen to these podcasts is it gets me thinking about the top of Maxwell's hierarchy of needs. And for those of you who don't know, that would be things such as morality or creativity, or just in general, to kind of sum it up, shower thoughts. And for me, that's stuff that has always interested me, things that I think about all the time. So I just kind of also wanted a way to talk about that stuff, potentially with other people, maybe just to myself. But at the end of the day, this podcast, it's ultimately for me. So it's for me to push my comfort zone into something that I never really thought I would be able to do. And, with that, because I'm pushing myself, because I'm trying to improve myself, I appreciate any feedback you have with your friends, family, others, people that I don't know. If that's you, welcome. I don't know how you got recommended this. Well, that's enough about the challenge. I've talked for already quite a while into my designated time, but so let's move on to the topic of the day. So today's topic is self-improvement. And so I think something important when you're talking about self-improvement is you have to kind of prove why someone should listen to you. And that would be called something like rapport, RAPPORT. And I'm going to change this convention a little bit and say, maybe you shouldn't listen to me. I probably don't really know what I'm talking about. All I know is what has worked for me. But because things have worked for me, then things might work for you. And at the end of the day, trying new things to improve yourself, I think, is a vital part of self-improvement. I mean, you can look up on Google self-improvement, and you'll find a million articles, and they'll say things like the best guide for self-improvement, the actual best guide for self-improvement, or a guide for self-improvement. And if that's the case, probably hire a new columnist for that one. Pretty bad title. But for me, my journey started with a simple YouTube video called Willpower is for Losers. And it's by What I've Learned on YouTube. Great video. I would highly recommend it. And in it, the host describes his addiction to popular video game Super Smash Brothers. He said he would come home every day and he would sit down on the couch and play Smash Brothers for hours, and he wouldn't get anything done. And on impulse, he bought a timer Tupperware jar, where you set a timer on it, you lock it, and you can't open it for that time. Excuse me. And he set this so he bought this jar, and he took his GameCube controller, put it in there, and set a timer for 24 hours. And he said he came in hypothesizing that he would just be going, I want to play Smash Brothers right now. I want to play, but I can't, and this sucks. But what actually happened is he said he walked around the whole day and he almost completely forgot that he had it in there. And that's a curious result, because you would think for things that you spend a lot of time doing, or that you just have this bad habit of doing, you'd think that would just be all that you're talking about. But he talks about a 2012 study, it's called, pretty long name, called Everyday Temptations, an Experience Sampling Study of Desire, Conflict, and Self-Control. And this study found that the people who often identified as being the most in control are actually people who resist the least desires throughout the day. So let me repeat that. The people who think, they're really in control of their life, they always accomplish what they need, those are often the people who resist the least temptation in the day. And so this result, while it doesn't prove anything per se, suggests that self-control is, in a sense, like a resource. And resisting temptations takes effort and depletes that resource. And that's such an interesting thing to consider. So for me, what was really a bad temptation was YouTube. And I'm sure a lot of people can really resonate with that. YouTube is such a simple app where you get a notification from someone you're subscribed to, or you open it up and you see a million new things. I mean, Google knows exactly what grabs your attention. And so for me, I would just spend all this time wasting it on, for the most part, videos that I wasn't even really interested in, but I would just sit there doing nothing, watching them. And so I decided to take this approach with YouTube. And I'm sure a lot of you probably know, but maybe you don't know, that there are, whether you're on iPhone or Android, there are app timers. And these app timers can limit the amount of time that you spend on it. And so for me, earlier in the summer, when I first saw this video, I was bored. I wasn't doing anything interesting. And so I was just spending 7-8 hours a day on YouTube. And that's not a great habit, obviously. I mean, I don't have to tell you. And so what I did was I set a timer on it. I set it for, I think, 4.5 hours. Now, 4.5 hours is a lot of time. You can watch a lot of videos during that time and waste a lot of time. But it's better than 7 hours. And it's better than 8 hours. And so for me, what I did was when I would reach the end, the message would pop up saying, app lock for the day, and it would go great, and I couldn't open it up. And so what did I do? Well, I was bored. And so what I did was I channeled that boredom to do things that I had always wanted to do. I started learning a new language. I started reading books that I had kind of forgotten about for a long time. And that inspired me to start setting some goals. I began working with a friend, and I ended up reading a fantastic book that really leads us into the next section. So an important part, I think, one of the core parts of self-improvement is strategy. So trying to achieve a goal, I think, is like sailing across the ocean without a map. So you could be lucky and you could find India. You could find America instead. It'd still be pretty lucky. Or you could find Antarctica, and that would suck. So why would you not want a plan for your goal? And I'm sure most people don't actively say, I'm just going to go into this without planning. I'm going to get a six-pack, but I'm not going to plan because that'd be stupid. The thing is we oftentimes are too lazy, or we just don't really think of writing a strategy for it. And so in my opinion, I think strategy can be about half of the battle when it comes to achieving what you want, when it comes to forming new habits. And forming new habits are really the core essence of achieving what you want. I mean, if you want to be in shape, working out one time isn't going to get you there. But setting up a habit, it will. And so it's the little battles, the day-by-day battles, that separate you from not doing something to achieving what you want. And the problem is that those habits are oftentimes the worst part of achieving what you want. Those little daily battles are the hardest. I mean, think about how many times you said, I'll exercise, or I'll learn Spanish, or whatever language. For me, what comes to mind is this last winter, people were talking about learning a computer programming language, C. They were going to learn it prior to taking a class on it. And now think about how many times did you brush off the failure of doing a new habit? And for me, I can't even count. Every summer, I make these goals. And most summers, I achieve probably 10 to 20% of them if I'm being lucky. Now I'll have you think one last time of something that you did pick up, a habit. It could be a good or bad habit. And for me, I like to think of running. So when I was a freshman, I had really never done any sports before, at least in a full capacity. And when I was a freshman, I joined cross country. And that picked up immediately. I mean, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but I ran practically year-round for my entire high school career. And so why did one of these things fail while the other succeeded? Why did I learn running, but I didn't learn C? And it's likely because of immediate payoff. In today's society, instant gratification really is king. And I can't judge because I suffer from this as well. I suffer from instant gratification all the time. I want ice cream, or sometimes, I'll get a craving and I'll say, oh, I want ice cream, and I'll go buy ice cream, or I'll go, I don't know, if I don't want to run, then I won't run because it'll feel bad. But what is the most gratifying, or what is the best type of accomplishment? It's those that have delayed gratification. I mean, when you achieve learning a new language, when you achieve getting better at math, those things feel fantastic. Isn't that weird? Isn't it weird that the things that are the most gratifying are the hardest and longest to achieve? And if starting these delayed gratification habits are so ungratifying, how do we, for lack of a better word, how do we attack them? Well, we do that using strategy. And so for me, this started when I read a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Again, that's the book that I was referencing earlier, and I think it was fantastic. I would highly recommend. And in this book, he talks about strategies for making minute changes that will make a huge difference in your life. And so what he suggests is, make a 1% improvement every day. You make a 1% improvement on yourself if you're trying to be more healthy. You work out a little bit. You improve yourself by 1%. It's not a lot, and it doesn't feel like much. But in 100 days, you're twice as good as you were before. or no, that math doesn't work out. You're 1% better, but the thing is as you start getting farther and farther, the 1% starts becoming 5% of where you started, and you start getting better and better, and you start making a huge difference in your life. And so in this book, he details a lot of strategies for making those minute changes. A good example of which is what he calls habit stacking. And so what this can come out as is, if you want to exercise, well then you say, right after dinner, I'm going to exercise. Or if you want to read more, then you say, after I wake up, I will read more. And this sounds stupid. It sounds like it's the most obvious thing ever, or it sounds like you're just embarrassing yourself by saying these things out loud. But it makes huge differences, because it tells your brain, hey, this is when I will do it. I will do it because I told myself I will do it. And now it's just time to do it. Another strategy is making it obvious. This could be something such as leaving your workout shoes on your bed. But probably don't do that, but leave them, by the door. Or leaving a book on your bed. So when you are trying to go to sleep, then you see the book and it reminds you to do this habit. And again, it sounds so incredibly obvious. It's like, if you want to work out, well then you should be reminded of it. However, the physical effects of it being there is so much better than having just a reminder on your phone. And so to kind of demonstrate this example, think about your fridge. Maybe some of you don't want to because it's so gross. Mine certainly isn't the best either, but think about your fridge. Imagine you have an onion. If you place that onion at the back of the fridge, will you remember it? Well, sometimes. I'm sure a lot of people are very good at combing through the refrigerator and making sure that they get all this stuff out and they don't ever waste anything. For me, that is absolutely true. In fact, today I just found a nice little piece of a nice little baggie full of very old vegetables, and I can't say I'm proud of it, but they were hidden. I couldn't see them. It was not obvious. And so these little things that he details in this book, they sound so stupid. Frankly, they sound stupid. Saying, talk to yourself and tell yourself that you're going to do this at a certain time, or put a book on the bed instead of just setting a reminder. But strategy really is half the battle. I would, again, coming back to my previous example of, or coming back to my experience of, in previous years, I never really achieved 10% of my goals every summer. This summer, I've probably done more productive stuff in half the summer than I have in the entire one, probably combined of the last one since I've been in college. And so strategy, like I said, really can be half of the battle. One moment. And so what I would recommend, and what has worked for me, is setting a plan, setting a goal, or probably not in that order. Set a goal, set a plan, and you want to set them small. So what I mean by that is, Yeah, for example, one of my friends, he planned on studying biology for 2 hours a day. Well, studying 2 hours a day right out the gate, I'm sure a lot of people can make it work, especially if they have external motivation behind it. But a lot of times I feel that it has the opposite effect. Because if you're saying that you want to work out, and you go work out, and you work out for 2 hours, the next day you feel like crap, and you don't want to do it again. It demotivates you, even though you already did it. And so the most important part of a habit, and I will stress this, I think the most important part of a habit is starting the habit. Why does it matter if you lifted 200 pounds one time when lifting 100 pounds a week starts the habit and retains the habit? So again, I will stress it. Focus first on the habit and then focus on the improvement, because the improvement doesn't come without the habit, but the habit can come before the improvement. And habits as a whole are really the first step in achieving what you've always wanted to do. Whether you want to save money, whether you want to be happier, be healthier, have more pets, I don't know, you do you. But forming those habits are the most important, but also probably the toughest part. So now we'll move on to the final chapter, comfort zones. And this can really depend on who you are and what you want to do. But comfort zones are really the enemy when it comes to what you want to do and who you want to be. And so to kind of illustrate this, we'll take a look at Newton's first law. An object at rest stays at rest, while an object in motion stays in motion. And I think this is very true with comfort zones as well. So to illustrate this, I'll give a story from my life. So when I was a kid, I used to be terribly, terribly shy. And I can remember this one time where I was in an Arby's, the best restaurant. I was at an Arby's, and I wanted more Arby's sauce. And so I asked my dad. I said, "Hey, can you get this Arby's sauce for me?" And he said, "No, get it yourself. Like a father should do." And so what I had to do was I had to go up to the counter and I had to ask for some packets of Arby's sauce. And that terrified me. I remember this vividly. I walked up and I walked around. I paced back and forth by the counter for probably a minute straight. And guess what? I walked back without the Arby's sauce. And so, while I was a kid and I didn't really know kind of what I was doing, that really illustrated to me how shy I was, how much it was affecting my life when I couldn't even ask for a sauce, a simple sauce, something that these workers obviously would provide without, they wouldn't even care. It doesn't matter to them. But I couldn't even ask them because I was too shy. And for me, slowly over time, and almost totally in part because of my parents forcing me, I was able to break out of my shell and talk to people that I didn't know. I'm still not the best at this. I will fully admit that. But compared to the Arby's me, it's a night and day difference. And for me, I think this change came about because of pushing my comfort zones. So a major change for me was 4-H camp counseling. So this was a camp that I had gone to since I was a little kid. And when I finally became old enough to become a counselor for it, I couldn't go to the camp anymore. I decided to join. I mean, my brother had done it. I had always, admired the counselors that had done it. And so I did it. I became this counselor. And I went to the training, and some of them were people that I knew. Most of them weren't people that I knew. And while I could kind of talk to them, next came the time where I had to talk to kids, something I had really never done. I mean, obviously when I was a kid, I talked to kids, but when I was a high schooler, I mean, I didn't have experience babysitting, really. I didn't have experience working with little kids that much. And I remember being totally out of depth. I mean, I didn't know what they liked. I didn't know what they disliked. I had been a kid once, but I didn't know. I was panicking. And I mean, I couldn't barely even talk to people my own age. And now you're expecting me to talk to people half my age. And so what could have happened, and what does happen for some people in these roles, is they turtle up. They say, well, I don't want to do that, or I'm not suited for this. And I can say I probably almost certainly tried to do that. But what happened to me was I was in the same cabin as two most senior counselors, and they would take none of that. They kept pushing me to do more. It started out with things like, announce what chores we're going to be doing, or hey, go, that kid's a little lonely, go talk to him for a little bit. And those small changes of me, they were, I can almost guarantee they were awkward. They were awkward encounters with these kids, and they probably didn't go too well. But for me, that pushed me out of my comfort zone, and it started getting me more and more comfortable with what I do. And so they would say, hey, introduce this game. And I mean, I have a very naturally quiet voice, so I would have to scream at the top of my lungs so people could even hear me from 6 feet away. Or they would say, hey, we're going to cover you in shaving cream and throw Cheetos at you, things like that. Or we're going to make you wear a dress. Yeah, we're going to make you wear a dress and say these very embarrassing things. Oh man, I should have talked about that. We're going to make you wear a dress at the campfire. And the kids will laugh at you. They'll eat it up. And, that was just my first year. And despite, I think, it not really being great, I couldn't talk to these kids. I was not very good at talking to new people in general. And despite that, I think the kids still liked me. And for me, that was encouraging, because while I wasn't the best at relating to them or talking to them, they felt comfortable with who I was. And what does that do? Well, that gives you confidence. And so I did this camp for 5 years. While I wasn't great, I started getting better. I ended up being in a 2-person cabin instead of 3, so I had a little bit more authority. I eventually became the senior counselor in a cabin where I was teaching other counselors. I pushed myself to lead songs and eventually advise new counselors. And after those 5 years, I finally felt that I had done all that I could. And in the end, I really felt permanently changed. I mean, what did I achieve? I mean, you could just say, well, you're a better counselor. That's not true at all. I mean, while I am a better counselor, I'm a lot more confident. I'm more comfortable with who I am. I'm not too scared to speak my mind. It's easier for me to talk to new people. And I appreciate kids. I mean, that's something that I never did before. I really never... I was so awkward around them, and I began to appreciate the innocent little things that they say, and how like stupid some of them are. It's an experience that I never thought I would have had, and I never would have continued had it not been for first making that step of applying, and those counselors pushing me, because what I realized is, again, when I was myself, even if I wasn't perfect, people accepted me, and that gives you confidence. And so pushing your comfort zone slowly but surely can provide you that confidence to keep going, to keep expanding it. And so maybe you think, well, why don't we push our comfort zone? Well, obviously because it sucks. Nobody likes pushing their comfort zone. It's not fun. Things go wrong. We fail. And nothing hurts worse than failure. But pushing those comfort zones are the best and oftentimes only ways of doing things that we want to do. Meeting new people, accepting who we are. And for me, this podcast is a way of pushing my own comfort zone further. I will be frank, I really didn't want to do this. When I was talking to my friends who I do this self-improvement group with, I was very hesitant to bring this up because I don't know, I didn't want to do it because pushing my comfort zone sucks. But pushing your comfort zone is, again, the best way and sometimes the only way to achieve what you want. And so if there's anything that I can leave you with, I would inspire you to take one small thing that you're scared of. Could be talking to strangers, talking to females. Hey, can I get an amen, brothers? Eh? Or whether that be giving a speech. Find a tiny step towards achieving or overcoming. It could be talking to a person on the stairs, just saying hi to them. It could be talking to a female, saying hi to a female. Hey, I get it, believe me. But take that decision, set a time, set a date to have it done by, and have your friends hold you accountable. I mean, I know it's hard. I'm terrible at it too. But take that step, because after all, an object in motion, it stays in motion. If you begin to push your comfort zone, it will stay in motion. It will continue to expand until finally you can do the things that you wanted to do. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you at least got a little bit out of this. I would say I certainly did. I'll continue to make these episodes, my thoughts, and hopefully I'll improve each episode, whether that be making the video look a little nicer or adding fancy effects, things like that. And so any suggestions or improvements that you have are really welcome in the comments below. Just a little side note before I end. I had aimed for 20 minutes, and this has ended up being around 40. I'm glad that I found a topic that I enjoy talking about, and I hope maybe you enjoyed it too a little bit. Take care, everyone.